Hello, it's Miguel Trujillo here on 7 p.m. on May 1st, 2015, and I am creating another impromptu video. And of course, what that means is it's without a script, and so I'm winging it here. I don't even have a topic for discussion, so um, but I thought that would be valuable. With all the reality television that's available, I think everyone's learned that, it's important to sort of convey um, as few false uh, behaviors and personalities and sort of facades of human behavior as possible. And so, in the spirit of that discovery, the discovery of reality television, I come to you today. And let's see. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the observations that I had today as I was going throughout my day and just chat a little bit about them, give you some insight into what's going on with me. So I went for a walk today around the block. That's something I do quite regularly, and I enjoy it very much. I think that human beings need to walk. That's something that we do. That's a behavior that is essential to what being a human is in some respects. I know, a lot of people think when they try to define human beings and human nature, they talk about a lot about rationality and thought, and, generating concepts, and that's fine. I think that probably is representative of Homo sapiens more than any other animal group. Um, but one of the other characteristics of humans is that we walk, and I think that's also pretty important. We walk upright on two legs, which I think is a fairly unique geometry. And at least for some of the animals that I see, I don't see a whole lot of animals walking on two legs, walking around. And I think that walking, like we do as humans, is almost as characteristic of a human being as thinking. It's sort of like kangaroos. Kangaroos hop. Kangaroos have to hop. Humans have to walk. So I think that's a pretty important characteristic about being human. Anyway, beyond the philosophy of defining human nature and Homo sapiens, I was really just getting wanting to talk about me going for a walk. Okay, it's funny how I have a conversation and then immediately I jump one level, two levels, three levels, and then I'm already talking about the big picture. It's pretty funny. That happens a lot, which probably explains my interest in philosophy, um, because I almost it's just an immediate reaction, and it's so anyway. I went for a walk today. In fact, I went for two walks today. And some of the things that I enjoyed on my walk were um, looking at the lizards. Apparently, there's a lot of lizards around, and they're really fun to watch. Um, and when I leave, they're very small. They're usually tiny, about 3 inches, 4 inches. I don't think I've seen anything larger than 4 inches. And I'm astounded that they're able to live out there with so little water. They must get their water from the plants that they eat. And I like to watch them scurry about. They're almost always running away from me. I think, and in fact, that's true for a lot of animals. They see something that startles them and then they jump away. You know, I think that is nature and the forces of evolution doing their job to keep life safe. And it works great. It's a great because I might be 20 feet away from a lizard or a bird, and those guys are scurrying away. So they're keeping themselves safe, and that's good because as a human being, I know that I accidentally and unintentionally kill animals just to, as I walk down the street. I'll step on ants. I'll close doors, and flies will sort of be drawn into my, or moths will be drawn into my house, and or spiders somehow. I don't know. Human beings, as we go about our lives, driving, everything that we do, it we kill animals and insects, and it is tragic. My conscience bothers me about it all the time. I was taking a shower the other day, and came across a spider in the tub, and of course I felt an obligation to protect it, and so I went and got a glass. I was half wet. Went and got a glass from the kitchen, captured the spider, put the palm of my hand on top of the glass to protect it from getting out, opened the door, and then set the glass outside so the spider could scurry away. And that is that is a routine that I've developed. This is something that occurs on a regular basis. I'm always trying to chase flies and moths out of my home, you know, and they just show up when I'm opening the door, and they fly in, and I know for them it's a death sentence. And it really bugs me that just as I go around my daily life, I'm unintentionally killing and drowning and destroying these insect lives. I wish it didn't have to be that way. And I know the insects that I kill unintentionally, uh, only like I'm only aware of probably a tenth, maybe even less, maybe even 1% of the insects that I total insect kill every day. Completely unintentional while I'm walking out. I step on snails, I step on ants. As I'm driving, I've got birds flinging themselves in my windshield. You know, it's it's tragic. I leave a trail of death behind me every day of hundreds of living things, and it's troubling. It's troubling. I'm not sure how. Hopefully, in the future, we'll find ways to deal with this tragedy over the next 50, 100 years. Maybe we'll have sensors like cameras and lasers, and all the home computer will say, "Hey, you've got a bug in the closet. It needs to be rescued." Honestly, I don't know how we're going to solve this problem. Maybe vehicles will be more. Um, I can imagine. Oh, an interesting vehicle. They're in a few years, 5 years, there'll be autonomous vehicles everywhere. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have these vehicles say, look out for animals? I mean, they'll almost have to. So I'm looking forward to less roadkill. Less roadkill, fewer deer taken out, fewer moose taken out, fewer squirrels taken out on our streets, which are just bloodbaths of roadkill. And it's just, I mean, I can't wait for these autonomous cars. Hopefully, maybe they'll brake faster. Maybe they'll just drive at slower speeds. A lot of people drive over the speed limit. Um, Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully, vehicles will be more aerodynamic. So the flies and the locusts, the grasshoppers and everything that hits my windshield, those little bugs, maybe through better aerodynamics, those bugs will just fly over my car instead of get hit on the windshield or on the front grill of my engine. Anyway, I'm very conscious of these animals that I kill. At least I'm conscious philosophically about them. I worry about the ethics of it. I think, you know, you know, I actually am an advocate of animal rights. I'm not very vocal about that advocacy, and I actually don't do much. I don't actually do any physical activity related to animal rights, but I have philosophical positions that I care about that um, um, sort of asked me to at least consider, to consider seriously animal rights. Um, and and I definitely care about their responsible handling. And as I grow older, I care more about it because I often see them as just innocent victims of human negligence. And those are powerful words, but really, I care for these innocent creatures who are just trying to live their lives, their short lives. I mean, how long is the life of a spider or a fly, right? We're talking 3, 4 weeks max, and I cut those lives short 50%, 90%, and I'm not even thinking about it. Yeah. And, I'm especially sensitive to the rights of animals that have or appear to have um, emotional lives that are similar to me. So, for example, chimpanzees, apes, for example, I'm really sensitive about their well-being, and I get very upset when I see videos or hear stories about them being mistreated, um, because I recognize their ability to suffer internally, and it bothers me when I hear stories about them suffering. Um, you know, I don't have a whole lot of insight because I haven't done a lot of studying about the potential for animals to suffer, particularly higher animals like chimpanzees. But I have a feeling that 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 it's really high because these animals seem to convey a sense of consciousness, which is um, very high, which is undeniable, really, and um, and I think becoming more and more undeniable every day. Everybody's got a cell phone camera, right? And so they're always taking photographs of their animals, like their dogs and their cats and their rats and whatever, or their pets. And I think if you watch YouTube and some of the animal videos that are showing up there, you will see amazing things. You will see you will see elephants displaying artistic behavior. I mean, you will see rats displaying behavior that indicates that they care for their fellow rats, that they have empathy, that 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 they play. I was looking at some videos the other day. It was crows playing in the snow. They were, I mean, it's clear. The intention was you could, as a human being, I can anthropomorphize and see that these crows were really playing in the snow. And I mean, when I see stuff like that, it just blows my mind. And I know today people in the legal profession generally take a fairly dim view of animal rights, I think, particularly, certainly not on the same level as human rights. Um, and I think, at least when it comes to, say, chimpanzees, the problem is that chimpanzees don't have the ability to understand our rules or our social rules. They don't have the ability to sort of take responsibility for their own actions because they're just not that sophisticated. So how can you give them, say, rights or freedoms if they're incapable of understanding those rights? Um, uh, you know. But I think that argument has a very good counter argument, and it has to do with um, the rights and human rights for people who are mentally disabled. You know, a person who's mentally disabled, even though they don't understand freedoms or responsibilities or rules or human interaction, they're still human beings and they have human rights. And the same is true in analogy with animals, especially higher animals like chimpanzees. Um, just like a person who's mentally disabled, they may not understand what's really going on around them on an intellectual basis. Um, they may not even understand they have human rights if we were to assign human rights to animals. Um, but um, I think it's not such a high jump that we couldn't assign some rights to chimpanzees, and I think we do. Um, I think we do, but I think we also need to do a little better. Uh, you know, um, Now I don't know. I also don't have all the answers, and I think that's part of the reason I don't I'm not that active in animal rights ev- events or even in animal rights forums on the internet because I actually don't have a lot of answers. My answer is only let's see if we can be a little more benevolent, a little more charitable to these animals and see what happens. I have a feeling things will work out better if we do start legally recognizing the rights of animals. And I think both animals and humans will benefit from the additional respect that humans give to animals. Yeah. So I think it's worth a try. Um, I think that the old views about how animals don't feel pain or, you know, animals don't aren't conscious. Do animals have souls? These old arguments are either incorrect or are completely irrelevant today. Those are old turn of the century arguments, and I mean turn of the 18th century and 19th century and 20th century, but but the arguments I think are completely invalid in the 21st century. Of course, you know, animals don't feel pain. I mean, it's it's absurd. The argument is absurd, and I'm not sure why it was accepted 100 years ago, or that where it was confused, or people were uncertain. Today we know enough about biology, the nervous system, um, um, behavioral um, adaptations, and we know enough today about animal psychology to understand that there's pain going on. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to the original subject. I was talking about a walk, right? That was the real whole point of this discussion. I wanted to focus on walking, and then I saw some blizzards. Do you see? I go off on tangents. Notice how I'm just trying to discuss a walk around the block that I took, and already twice I've taken a mundane walk around the block, and I have already pushed the up button and moved to one, two, three higher levels of the conversation discussing the philosophy of animal rights. This happens to me all the time. Um, okay, so I was going on a walk around the block. Okay. and I saw some lizards. All right. And let's see, what else? I saw some birds, and I'll tell you, the air really smells good this time of year. I don't know what it is about the environment. Maybe there's been a recent rain, the trees are moist, the air just smells fantastic. It smells like pine cones, it smells like trees and plants and these odors and aromas that sort of are emanating and wafting around are just fantastic. I love the smell of trees. I love the smell of trees. Okay, so now it's spring, right? It's May 1st, so it's May Day. And so I tell you, it smells great outside. I love the smell of spring. And so it's quite a joy to go for a walk because it's spring and the environment is just so pleasing. It's not too hot, not too cold, not too sunny, not too cloudy. Um, the air smells great. I'm watching all these lizards and birds. It really is quite nice. All right, so now I don't have anything to talk about. So, all right, so I've got this book here. This was my backup. I have a book called Philosophy, the Power of Ideas. It's the fourth edition. And I figured that I would just choose a random page in the book and discuss whatever topic happened to show up. All right, so I'm literally choosing a random subject in a textbook, and we'll see what we find, okay? Oh, boy. Oh, I don't know. Well, okay. I haven't. Let's. There's just a little aphorism in here, and it looks like it's about. This is a subject, part three, the philosophy of religion. Oh boy. So anyway, we'll get this started. So it's just a few sentences. I'm just going to read it. So and I'll respond to it. Okay. All right. Here it goes. The title is "The Black Cat." An old saying goes that the difference between a metaphysician and a theologian is this: the metaphysician looks in a dark room for a black cat that is not there. The theologian looks in the same place for the same thing and finds it. That's a pretty interesting aphorism. Yeah. So, okay. So that little story is clearly describing a distinction between a metaphysician and a theologian. So, my understanding of metaphysician is the sort of the Aristotelian understanding, a person who's interested in metaphysics or the nature of reality. And theologian, well, I don't have to describe what that is. That's certainly essentially a theist. Um, so I kind of like it. The metaphysician, he says, they say, looks in a dark room for a black cat that is not there. So, so I'm guessing this metaphysician is a person who's got a theory and wants to verify that theory. Looking in a dark room for a black cat, but can't find any evidence that the black cat is there. Now, there might be another level that this sentence is talking about. And it's contrasting that with the theologian who looks in the same place for the same thing and finds it. You know, that's the interesting thing about religion is how a religious person can look at something and find evidence in a place where other people might see an absence of evidence. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it raises the question about what would be evidence for the existence of one thing or another. And it's interesting that there was disagreement on the subject. Yeah. You know, does the evidence exist or does it not? Um, you know, it's kind of funny. Um, there's a lot of ways to approach this question. Evidence is, that's the thing about being alive in the world. We're sort of thrown into this world when we're born, and there aren't any apparent rules, and so we basically have got to make them up. We've got to develop processes, and I mean, if you think about the scientific method, someone had to come up with that scientific method. Someone had to devise it, to automatize it. I mean, to operationalize the scientific method. You know, someone someone has put a lot of thought into the steps of the scientific method, and you know, evidence that is obtained through using the scientific method is objective in the sense that that evidence is sort of the result of using the method, which is just ideas devised by people that seem to have pragmatic consequences, pleasing, positive consequences. Um, it's a trial and error process. What is evidence? Well, it's whatever works through a trial and error process. And and so when it comes to like, okay, trying to answer a question about whether something exists or not, you got to ask yourself, well, what kind of evidence are you willing to consider or not? And hopefully, when you try to lay down rules about what constitutes evidence, that those rules are widely applicable, across many disciplines. Why? Well, it turns out that highly generalizable rules, like the laws of nature, are valuable, especially if they're correct, and or create help improve our predictions about future events. Um, you know, so what constitutes evidence? Well, a lot of evidence comes to us by way of our experiences and our sense perceptions, and uh, but there are other ways to get evidence: um, rational thought, deduction, and logic. You know that has little to do with our senses, um, but I think it's a valid way to obtain evidence for something. Um, Mathematics has a lot of proofs in them, in that subject area, and it's not like you can utilize your sense of taste, touch, hearing uh, to sort of verify the correctness of these proofs. These are rational deductions and extensions of using logical principles. So, okay, what am I getting at? Well, I'm asking myself the question: what constitutes evidence? And you know, the contrast between, say, rationalism and um, say, scientific materialism. This is known. This contrast has been known for a long time. I mean, this goes back to Descartes, right? I think, therefore I am. That was Descartes' deduction. Descartes deduced a whole lot of other things using his so-called rational method. Um, and so rationalism can really only take you so far. Uh, there are arguments for the existence of God. There's some may find them compelling. There's good 5, 6, 7 arguments out there, and then the base arguments, and then there are variations on a theme. Quite a number of variations on a theme for those arguments. They probably go into the hundreds of variations on a theme, and maybe even variations on those variations. Rationalism can get you a few steps, but eventually you're going to have to, you know, if something you claim exists, eventually you're going to have to fall back on something that um, something that connects to sense perception. I mean, atoms are a good example. you know, um, we know that atoms exist, well, mainly now because we've seen them through scanning electron microscopy and other techniques. I think techniques far more sensitive than that. Um, but there's a lot of avenues of evidence. It's a lot of lines of evidence, lines of argument, and rational argument plays a role. Um, but rational argument really, what it does is it lays down bridges uh, to our experiences and sensations. Really, and it's that which we rely on as a foundation. You know, a person could tell me that 1 + 1 = 2, and I could probably take that argument as far as I take that um, sort of idea as far as I could. But if I couldn't eventually add one block, one rock and another rock, and that equals 2 rocks, then I think I'm right to be skeptical, particularly if there were no bridges built to sensory experience. Um, you know, there would have to be some extension to physical experience, I think. Um, with atoms, it's relatively easy, where we just go plunk, and the rock is here. I'm sitting on a sofa. It's made of atoms. And then, oh yeah, I can cut things into smaller and smaller pieces. And I could use a microscope and continue to cut more and more and more. Use a scanning electron microscope and cut even more and more and more. And then, oh yeah, then we get to microscopy techniques that get us down to the atom level, atomic level, where we're literally moving atoms um, around on a plate and creating animated cartoons with the atoms. So I guess what I'm saying is having rational arguments is not enough. I mean, it might carry you so far, um, but eventually you got to show me some. You got to show me something that I can sense with my 5 senses, and not only that, but you know that hopefully you're playing a game that's sort of in an honorable way. You're not being, uh, you know, you're not trying. Anyway, I guess maybe I think I'm probably just arguing with myself. I am just arguing with myself. So, okay, let's move on to another subject. I'm not, I'm not sure I went very far on that idea. Oh boy. I think that sense experience is important. I think it's the foundation of knowledge. And yes, it's not perfect. There are ways to deceive sense experience. There's a lot of known visual illusions, uh, a lot of illusions when it comes to the various senses. Touch has a few. I think taste has a few that just comes to mind. Hearing has a few illusions. These limitations are known, and we've got workarounds for them. Yeah, we can't see. We can only see in the visible spectrum, but we've got workarounds that help us understand the electromagnetic fields across, all ranges of wavelengths, nearly all ranges of wavelengths, to the gigahertz and higher frequencies to the extremely low frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. And so you know, we can't see all those wavelengths, but we have the means to sort of correct our misperceptions or our lack of perception in those areas. You know, these are known questions, and and we've done a pretty darn good job of sort of understanding the limitation of our senses, and I think the lack of actual evidence for a lot of these supernatural claims, um, even the most basic supernatural claims, I think is compelling in itself. If someone were to discover some um, supernatural being or some alternate universe, they would totally get the Nobel Prize. Totally. And huge, I mean, huge, lots of research would go into that subject area. Money would just fall from the sky about for scientists willing to look more into this alternate universe that happens to exist. I happen to think that there is one reality, and it's the reality that is perceivable by our senses. It's a very basic um, theory, but I think it's well substantiated because I struggle to see evidence of multiple realities. I try looking for it, and I just don't see it. So I think there's only one reality. But I don't think that's necessarily the popular view. There are people who are a lot more creative than I, who don't share my view, and that's fine. Um, anyway, I think I've probably jibber jabbered on long enough. Although I probably could go for another hour without any trouble. But anyway, it was a pleasure talking with you and having this little discussion. And I hope you have a great evening and a great weekend, a great May Day, and a great spring. When I see you again, who knows? But anyway, take care. Bye bye.